Hi, welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I'm doing bands that record a song more than once, part 2. So I've done this before. I did a part 1 where I talked about some bands who have recorded songs and then re-recorded them again on a future album. So when I did that show, a few comments were left about ones that I missed out. Thanks especially to Dan from Off the Charts. He mentioned quite a few to me, and I thought, yeah, there's a few there that I really should add on there, so I'm going to do a part 2. So here we go. I've been waiting a while to do this, so let's get into it. Now, one of the first ones that Dan mentioned that was a bit of an obvious one, I should have remembered this one, is of course Ratt, and from their debut EP, Back for More, of course, is on this EP, and it is also on their debut full-length, Out of the Cellar. So that was a bit of an obvious one that I was a bit surprised I forgot. But then also Dan asked me, does your version of the EP have the song You're in Trouble? And so I had a look and I was like, You're in Trouble? No, You're in Trouble's not on here. So it's got 6 songs. And he said, no, his version's got 7 songs and it's also got You're in Trouble. So I then ended up thinking, well, actually, maybe I need to get that version. So I thought that version that had the 7 songs was Any Music for Nations copy of the EP. So I went out and got a Music for Nations copy of it. And it looks a little bit different to the Time Coast version because it's got a black and white picture of the band at the back. But it turns out it's not every Music for Nations copy has You're in Trouble on it. The UK one doesn't. Europe and France do. I got the UK one, so I ended up with exactly what I already had, just a slightly different, back cover really. But anyway, so there we go. And now I've decided I'm not even that fussed about it. Having heard the original and heard the version on Out of the Cellar, yeah, there's not a big difference. In fact, if anything, the Out of the Cellar for me. Same with Back for More. Back for More and Out of the Cellar is just a little bit better. I'm a bit of a fan of Boho and his production, so it just sounds a little bit better to me. So for this one, I'm going to say that the re-recorded version is the better version. Another one that Dan mentioned to me is a good one too, is Savatage. So Out on the Streets was on their Sirens album. It was the last song on the album. And then it was also released, so Sirens came out in 83, and then in 1986, they had that song on their album, Fight for the Rock. So it was actually released as a single as well, and it was the second song on the album. It's quite a mellow song, really, for Savatage. Obviously, I think with this album, they're really going for some hits. They had a couple of songs on here as well. It's probably not one of their more critically acclaimed albums, but I like it. And I like the song Out on the Streets. I like both versions. I'm not that particularly fussed about which one is better. I know probably a lot of people prefer the original. I think with a lot of these, it's the original that people usually like the most. It's not always like that for me, because sometimes I find it improves over time, or the production techniques have improved, and so they made the song better. But yeah, sometimes it is. In this case, for me, I'm not too fussed either way. I like both versions, and yeah, I think it is a good song. And of course, this is Savatage have reissued a lot of their albums, so this is part of their reissue albums. They're great reissues. All right, next one, another one that I had in my collection but I forgot about, Wasted. This is from The Good, The Bad, and The Wasted, and this is the final album they did with Finn on vocals. And there has a song on here called Heaven Tonight. Again, like Out on the Streets, another really good song, one of my favourites from Wasted. So this came out in 85, and then interestingly enough, and 1 year later, 1986, they did the song again. So Heaven Tonight again, but this time they've got a new vocalist. This is from the album Save Your Prayers, and they've actually got Danny Vaughan on vocals for this one. This came out in 1986, and there's a music video for Heaven Tonight as well. And they look quite hair metal, which wasn't really an image I think they had before, but they started to embrace that look a little bit more with this album. As far as the versions, what's better, even though they've got different vocalists, I don't really notice a big difference. I think it's a really good song. Really good song. It's nice being able to see a music video of it too. And I do like Danny Vaughan and his vocals. Of course, he goes on to be the vocalist for Takedo, and they put out an album about 91 on Geffen. which is a great album. So I'd probably go with the Danny Vaughan version, but both versions of the song are really good. Good song. Next one up, Rhett Forrester. He was, of course, the vocalist in Riot, and he has a song called Assume the Position. Now, this is on the album Gone with the Wind. It came out in 1984. Now, this is actually a 1986 reissue of the album, but it has the song Assume the Position, and originally this album did come out in 1984. This wasn't the first version I heard. I actually heard, when I first heard that song, I heard it on this album, Even the Score, which came out in 1988. And interesting enough, which is actually, it's interesting, isn't it? A lot of these, at the second time they record it is actually also the time that they release it as a video or as a single. So even though it had been on his previous album, granted this is 88, so 4 years later, and it's been re-recorded, probably sounds a little bit better too, to be honest. I do prefer this re-recorded version. It has a music video as well, and it's quite a music video worth checking out. If you like ladies dressed as policewomen who decide to get undressed while you're being arrested, yeah, check it out. Yeah, it's a good song actually, really good riff. And yeah, I like this album, and I like Rhett Forrester. I like his vocals. Yeah, of course, he unfortunately he's passed away. He was murdered, unfortunately, not long after this album came out, maybe a few years in the mid early 90s. So it's not a very happy story. But check out the music video for Assume the Position, because he's definitely having a good time on that one. All right, next one, Accept and Eat the Heat. Now, of course, this is when David Reese comes in on vocals. So they've changed vocals for Udo, and the song that I'm talking about is Generation Clash. So there's a music video for this one as well. Now, interestingly enough, this is the first time it's recorded. It has a music video, but then it does get re-recorded again on their 1994 album, Death Row. But this time Udo's come back in, so it does get re-recorded. They're calling it actually Generation Clash 2. Yeah, but it's fairly similar, but of course different vocalists on there. Another one I wanted to mention, Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil. You can't beat the original, of course. They do Shout at the Devil 97 on their 97 album. It's okay, but it's nothing like the original. So I think for most people, I'd be very surprised if anyone says that 1997 version is better. It's more it's a little bit more industrial. But yeah, I mean the original's the way to go. But yep, they did re-record that song. Now Kiss is an interesting one because Double Platinum came out in I think 78, and they re-recorded Strutter, and they've called it Strutter 78. That was actually the first time I heard the song. I thought it was a really cool song. So I'm for me, I quite like the 78 version, but I can imagine for a lot of other people, it's more the original that they would go for. And also on their another compilation, Smashes, Thrashes and Hits, Beth is sung by Eric Carr on vocals, and supposedly from what I've heard, a lot of these songs have had something changed. Even though, the classic songs from the 70s, there's remixing or maybe different instrumentation on it, but I'm not sure of the exact details. But yeah, quite a bit changed, I think. But yeah, so that's the compilation there. Now this is an interesting one. So arguably it's not the artist re-recording it, but this is Run DMC and Walk This Way. Of course, that song also on this album does feature Aerosmith. So it's Aerosmith doing their song again, but with Run DMC, and it's kind of more Run DMC's song. But actually, the first time I ever heard Walk This Way was the Run DMC version. So which I really liked, and I thought that's a cool. And then I remember hearing the Aerosmith version, and I don't know, it just at the time it didn't really grab me. I was like, oh no, I much prefer this version, which probably seems a bit weird now, But not that I actually quite like a bit of hip hop, but I like a bit of rap metal, things like that. But so yeah, probably still for me, this is actually my preferred version. But obviously the original is a classic. Aerosmith, of course, did the original in '75. Rats in the Cellar, I think it was the name of the album. Oh no, it wasn't. It was Toys in the Attic. Yeah, Toys in the Attic. Walk This Way from '75. Next one, Love Hate. Now this is Blackout in the Red Room. People who watch my channel know I'm a big fan of this band. This is their debut album. I think it's come out in 1990. Yeah, 1990. And there's a song on here called She's an Angel. And originally, that song is re-recorded because originally it was on the Nightmare on Elm Street 4 soundtrack, the Dream Master, and I think that came out about 88, something like that, so a couple years earlier. And the producer on that actually was Juan Crucier from Rat. So he was producing the band, doing demos with them before this came out. But so there is a version. So this was Angel, or it's called She's an Angel, is re-recorded for their album. Right, last one I want to mention. It's a bit of a funny one, but it is a re-recording in some ways. It is Wasp, and this is the B-side, For Whom the Bell Tolls. So it wasn't released on their album, The Headless Children, but it was a B-side, and the song is For Whom the Bell Tolls, which actually originally you can find on an album by London, the band London, which Blakey Lawless used to be in. So they then recorded it as a B-side, For Whom the Bell Tolls, but then they kind of re-record the song. They changed the lyrics, and it becomes the gypsy meets the boy on the Crimson Idol. So there we go. I'm going to count that as a re-recording of a song because it sounds quite similar, but yeah, different lyrics on there. And that's it. So there we go. Bands that have recorded their song more than once, part 2. Now, it could be I've missed some more again. Let me know in the comments. Of course, make sure you check out part 1 if you haven't, because if I have missed some, it's possible that they are in part 1. I'll put a link in the description for part 1 if you want to check that out as well. All right, thanks for watching. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and I'll be back very soon with another video. All right, we'll catch you later. See ya.